Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast with your host, metaphysician, Reiki master, and hypnotherapist, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week, we will discover teachings, tips, and tools to radiate your best life ever with practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate?
Welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Today we radiate healing with Alyssa Couture, who is the author of Healthy Fashion: The Deeper Truths. This is going to be fun because Alyssa is a fashion author, a fashion entrepreneur, but also a fashion psychic, a channeler, and energy healing. This is going to be fun. And we're joined here by my cat, Casey, as well, if you're watching on YouTube. Alyssa, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so thrilled that we could get together like this. This is an intriguing topic. So healing through fashion. How long have you been in the fashion industry?
It's been about 15 years. Would you like me to tell you a little bit about my background?
Please. Yeah, that's
Okay.
so interesting.
So I'm 36 years old, and I started way back when I was about 15 and 16 years old. I would make these fashion collages, and I would draw on a little notebook, stick figures with fashion clothes and designs. And I actually ended up I kept going with that, and I would draw all these clothes. And so then I decided to go to Academy of Art University, which was a design and art school. And I got into fashion design, and I was in a lot of retail. I produced a small handmade fashion brand. I produced a fashion show at one point. I have been entered in the Saks Fifth Avenue talent search competition. So I have a lot of design background, and I also have a lot of retail management, styling, visual merchandising background. And I also have more of a spiritual side to me. I sort of dabbled into metaphysics and esoteric teachings. I visited and worked and lived at multiple ashrams and monasteries. So there's a spiritual aspect and part of my life that really kind of grew and sort of made this book what it is, because without that strong interest in the metaphysics and healing and metaphysics, I wouldn't really be able to kind of bring fashion to the point of where I wanted it to go. And that is fashion as an alternative health remedy, fashion as a healing tool and a healing modality. And it is not, mainstream yet, but I do see it coming where we're going to be gravitating. There's been studies and tests with treatments of aloe vera and fabrics. There is ancient teachings of Ayurveda and the herbal dyeing in clothes in India. So it exists, it's out there, but it's just not common. And what and I'll show you the book. This is the sample copy of the book. This book is really sort of the mission into bringing awareness of what unhealthy fashion is, and bringing awareness of what healing fashion, healthy fashion can heal the soul, heal the spirit, heal the mind and body. And that's really where I'm kind of going with this. And as a fashion intuitive, I've dabbled in eco research and eco fashion blogging. So I was writing about fashion before I got into the whole healthy fashion. I was sort of dabbling into making my handmade fashion brand previously in 2015, and being able to be with the clothing, design the patterns, pick out the fabrics, hemp, linen, and so on, and cotton, the healthy plant-based fabrics, that really also brought me into the realm of where can we push this further? How can we make fashion become something that can give to us in more ways than we can possibly imagine? And right now, I believe fashion is already healing us. It's already doing the work. We just sort of have to, I think, push it to another level where we can activate the consciousness of fashion, and really see it and feel it and make it become a part of our world, similar to the way other industries are kind of making more holistic realms in their work. Like, they're doing electric cars in the car industry, and they're the alternative holistic foods, the plant-based foods, and the alternative remedies and supplements and herbs. It's every industry has a way that they can bring their industry into the holistic field. And I think the fashion industry, we can bring sustainable and eco fashion into healthy fashion. We can go a step further and make it into a way where we can identify with fashion in for our well-being, identify it to balance our lives, and to sort of do the work for us.
Mm-hmm. So I just have to mention, of course, your last name literally means fashion in French, right?
Yes, it does.
Couture, right?
Yeah.
So you were kind of born to this. And I know that, like colors are extremely healing. This is my world of Reiki and energy healing. Colors are extremely healing. Feeling like you feel good, look good is extremely healing as well. Right. So what are the other aspects of healing that you bring into fashion?
So we have the medicinal physical aspect of wearing plants, and we sort of have to move away from polyester, which is a fossil fuel, and it's a non-renewable resource. It's not really doing enough for us. And plants, we have a sacred connection to plants. We eat plants almost probably every day. Plants is part of our lifestyle. So when we wear plants, and more plants that will be produced in the future, like seaweed, linen, brahmi, pineapple, peanut cotton, nettle. There's all of these different plants that we have been in minor production, have been in moderate production, are in mass production, or are not in production, but they were historically. So that's the whole idea with the plant-based aspect, not just wearing cotton and linen, bringing in multiple different types of plants, cultivating the ecosystem, in sort of bringing in new technology, plant textiles technology, so that we can bring all these plants into a mass production, because we can't stress out cotton and linen alone, and it only really makes up 1 to 5% of the textile market. Right now, polyester is like not up to over 90% of the textile market, and it's not really the most beneficial for us due to, multiple research of it being unbreathable. The pH is typically unbalanced, and it is the remains of fossils. So it is acidic in nature, and it's just not, I don't believe I believe more research needs to be done in order to identify what is doing to our body. But I'm not going to say it's killing us, but I'm saying it can cause harm.
Gassing, and the chemicals used in the manufacturing process as well.
Exactly. Yes. And, with all the oil spills and all of the animals dying from being covered in the oil, well, we're actually kind of doing that in a way with wearing oil. So that's the one aspect. And then we have the mental aspect, bringing in universal fashion. That is sort of stepping away from cultural appropriation and being able to identify with all the cultures, embracing all the cultures, embracing all the style genres and all the fashion archetypes, and sort of stepping away from the segregation, stepping away from the egotistical fashion, stepping away from the sacrificial fashion. So that's where the healing fashion steps into place, because a lot of times what we do is in the name of fashion, we do dress to sacrifice our comfort, to sacrifice our sort of self-esteem. We do things that aren't to our own benefit. And sometimes we don't even dress for our own well-being. So that's part of the mental aspect of it. And then we have the energetic, what you were talking about, the Reiki healing, how the energetics of materials and dyes affect our body, affect our aura. The color healing. I do touch base with that in my book with color. Back in Egypt, they used the colored Solarian realms, and they would heal all types of injury, from mental injury to physical injury, with their colored lights. And I have researched and found that the same frequency in the colored dyes is the same frequency in the colored lights of the Solarian realms. So color is color, and it affects it in many ways. Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. And then and I'm glad you mentioned what aspects of healing happen with fashion. There's also this spiritual realm, and we can get into holy dressing in a more divine way, being able to embrace our own divinity through clothing. And similar to like the symbols that we find, we can wear religious or non-religious, just spiritual types of symbols. We can also reflect on the ascended masters and the angels and the holy divine realms, and the priests and the priestess and the gurus and the swamis and the monks. They all wear robes. And so we can actually use the design elements of the robe, because it is a sacred, even Ascended Master Jesus wore the robe. So we can sort of take the design elements of the robe, and we can embrace that in design, and sort of focus and concentrate on how we can ergonomically design fashion in a way that is sort of embracing the divine realms in our higher self. So we can connect with our higher self more and more. And it's also a force of protection, because with the fashion being sort of a force of armor, it's a shield. And similar to the temples and the churches, they're architecturally made in a way that will seal in the light. So the temples are actually architecturally designed to seal in the light. And what I have read and researched is the Europeans would design clothes that would mimic the temples and the churches, so that it would seal in the body's light force by the actual garment. The garment would seal in the person's light force, but the type of garment that they wore.
Right.
Yes.
It's amazing. Well, and even in world religions, different people who are devotees of a certain tradition, or who are high up in the hierarchy of certain traditions, have certain garments that they do wear, including for the head, the hats in the Orthodox religion, scarves in the bonnets in Amish tradition, yarmulkes, turbans, all types of different things that just are an outward symbol of inward belief. So we could do that with any type of clothing.
Yeah, I'm glad you added that. That's very good information. And I agree with you 100%. Yeah, we're taking fashion in a way where we are kind of stepping away from the ego. We're stepping away from the segregation. We're bringing in the universal aspects. We're bringing in connection and being able to embrace fashion and even a galactic way, a cosmic supernatural way.
Wow.
Because I do talk about galactic fashion where we can wear clothes, and it's already, it is happening. It's just not it's not popular, it's not mainstream, but we can add light codes, light transmissions, designs and patterns and textures and colors that can really be adaptations from the higher universal cosmic realms.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I think it's coming. I believe it's coming. And as a designer myself and a channeler, I'd like to dabble into doing that myself. Galactic fashion.
Right. Well, I've got a background in theater, and I know that once we put on a costume, we put on a certain look, we feel a certain way. It kind of can even change our physicality, change our personality a bit. And so, yeah, stepping into galactic fashion, I would imagine that you'd feel a much higher vibration. I don't know, feel very different.
And it can be as simple as a t-shirt, but it's the cut, it's the silhouette, it's the texture, it's the lines, it's the seams, it's the fabric, it's the structure, it's the culmination of everything. And it can be very simple and minimal, or it could be very decorative and interesting and ornate. But where I'm coming from is with the futuristic fashion piece is, we're kind of going to start using fashion as a tool, as an activation, as a channel. And what you had said with the costume, we are stepping in to not just clothing, but we're stepping into our own identity, our personal expression, and we're embracing something that's deeper. And and that's where I go in with my book. I talk about the deeper truths of fashion. I don't just I'm all about trends. But I'm not about superficial trends. I know trends, fashion and trends are a collective, and it's a collective force that is making people come together. It's an important thing to embrace. And, I also agree with anti-fashion. I think you can be anti-fashion. I think you can be fashion. I think there's a lot of different philosophical ways of how we can address fashion, perceive fashion, and be, a part of fashion.
Right. This is a lot broader than I ever thought that this would be. I know I read your materials and I looked through your table of contents and everything, but there's just a lot more to fashion. Well, and of course, anything that we do when we do with intention, I mean, it has a different purpose or a different intention than when we don't add that intention. So this is really, really interesting. And I can see definitely how we can heal with fashion. And again, I know that when you're feeling sick and you put on your pajamas and you've got your robe and you're just kind of laying around, you don't feel very well. But sometimes when I take a shower, I put on some clothes that literally makes me feel better.
Oh,
Literally,
yeah.
it's healing.
Oh, it is. It's dramatic. I feel the same way. Sometimes, I love sweatpants, but for some reason, it just does something to me. It makes me feel overly like I need to go to sleep or something, But there are other sweatpants, like a more fitted sweatpant called sweggings, and for some reason that doesn't do that to me, that feeling. So like I said, like you had said, it really comes down to the silhouettes and the cuts of the garments and the types of textures and surface appearance. And what I also wanted to mention too is I also talk about fashion, the fabrics and the materials being a way to be breathable. And the polyester is a big epidemic. What we're dealing with is, in the 1930s, it really all started. The synthetics, the rayon, the acetate, the acrylic, the polyester, all of those fabrics were created by Monsanto, DuPont, all of Bayer, all of those chemical companies. They started these synthetics and they started the trend. And before that, we actually were wearing hemp in the 1800s.
Right.
Hemp was the top popular fabric. And right now, what we're dealing with is two types of plants, cotton and linen, which is the majority of plant-based textiles. So bringing in the different types of plants, I think is also going to help the underdeveloped countries develop, because some of these plants, like peanut in the Philippines, they are developing textile machinery in the Philippines to mass produce peanut. And this could be a way for our underdeveloped countries to get the advanced technology and upgrade and advance in society economically and socially. So this is sort of a world universal thing. It's not something that, I'm not really talking about local fashion. I'm talking about worldwide fashion that can really support the masses. And I know that in the fashion industry, the fast fashion topic is the really touchy, sensitive topic. And like I said, I think that what we're dealing with here is there's a population of 7 billion. So there's such a thing as fast fashion, and there's such a thing as mass fashion. And there's always going to be mass fashion, just like all of our grocery stores, we have mass food. So what we have to really work on is what are we placing and producing and what types of materials, because if we used the plant-based materials and the bio-based materials, we could really slow down the industry and it wouldn't be so fast just by using plant materials alone.
Oh my God. Well, that leads me to a couple of questions I really wanted to ask you. One is about animal fibers, and would there be a place for animal fibers in this? Fur, feathers, even silk?
Well, I don't specialize in fur and animal and silk, and I am not.
And I'm talking about fur, not the pelt, but like Angora or like wool.
Yes. Well, I believe the animal industry is 1% in the textile industry.
Mhm.
It's so niche and it's so minor that it could never become over minor, not even to moderate in the textile
Gotcha.
production, because of the ethics involved. We can't, unless there's lab grown leathers and there's lab grown furs where they're taking the DNA of the feather and the leather and then they're growing it, which, I don't see, I don't think it's awful, and it's not really my forte, so I'm not going to speak on it. But for fur and leather, I'm not against fur and leather down, because I think in some cultures, there's always going to be that tradition. There's always a little bit of wool. There's always a little bit of fur and leather. I don't think it's a bad thing. But in order to create healthy fashion, we really have to focus on the bio-based materials and the plant-based materials, because
Right.
that's the way we're going to be able to reach the masses and create a healthy ecosystem and create a healthy balance within the fashion industry and the world at large. But yes, I believe that animal fibers, traditionally the Native Americans embraced it, and some of the tribes, and I honor and respect those tribes. I think that sometimes I would have phases where I was entirely vegan, but I actually wore leather shoes at one point, and on those leather shoes lasted me years and years, and I wore them to the point where they were worn out, where you wouldn't want to wear them. So yes, I think that there's a place for it, but it's very minor and niche.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing that you were talking about is the social aspect, the socioeconomic aspect of fashion, the fast fashion, the mass fashion, and quite honestly, the sweatshop fashion. So, I would assume that your book, like I said, I haven't read it all the way through, but would be against anything that would be this kind of mass produced, this cheap produced, the cheap fashion, the fast fashion, more sustainable fashion.
I've addressed transparency. I've addressed the ethics of fashion in the book. I
Yeah.
believe that what we have to do we have to build better technology in order to have less slave labor. We
Right.
have to build better technology in order to stop stressing people out, because a lot of work industries, even in the food industry, there's so much labor involved and it's so intensive. And what we really have to do, like I think at some point, they're building a technology where it's less uh, time, less energy, less everything, so that it's easier on the human, because nobody should have to sit at a sewing machine for 12, 14 hours a day. I think that's too much stress. It's too much energy and it's too much work on that person. uh, Everyone has a right to be able to go to work and then have other hobbies, be able to be with their family, be able to have their time of peace and relaxation. And slave labor is, it's fast fashion. It's not. The polyester is really the culprit, uh, because polyester is so fast, but it's also the technology that we're using, and it's also we are actually relying on underdeveloped companies to make our clothing. This is totally imbalanced. But what you find in the USA, you can go to manufacturers in the USA, same labor intensive
Right.
workforce,
Low
same
pay.
slavery. It's unbelievable. So what we really have to do is we have to work on the technology, the textile machinery. We have to build better ways and solutions in order to make it easier for people.
No, I agree. And I believe there has to be a wholesale kind of change in our culture with consuming fashion as well. It's like, do we really need all of these different items? Can we have smarter, more durable items that we don't have to buy as much of? So, I mean, there's that as well.
Yes, I think that there's a surplus in this world, and
Mhm.
I think that there's in phases in my life. I remember times where I had a full closet and I didn't wear maybe not even half of it. I think I wore 10% of what was in my closet. And
Right.
now I work with 2 weeks worth of clothes and outfits, and that's what I do. I launder my clothes after 2 weeks, and then I wear the same clothes over again. And I'm
Mhm.
extremely minimal, and it works for me. It's easy, it's ethical, it's comfortable, it's It's a lifestyle. So I think that everybody kind of will naturally transition into different ways of associating with their fashion. But the throwaway fashion is, it's a burden. If we could burn all our clothes, that would be one thing, which we could down the road if it's plant-based. I remember in research, they would actually, in ancient times, they would burn their clothes as a sacred ritual. It was something where when they parted with their clothing, they would burn it, and it was like incense or sage. They just burned it and released it. So it was a sacred thing.
Right. And then they would wear it literally until it was falling apart as well, and not have to have a new fashion. And of course, that puts the fashion industry out of business if we don't constantly adapt new styles and new trends. But we used to have a much more pragmatic approach with our adornment, our physical adornment.
Did you know that Radiate Wellness is more than just a podcast? That's right. We're also a comprehensive, holistic wellness practice. Find out about our services, practitioners, and upcoming events at radiatewellnesscommunity.com. While you're there, visit our podcast page to read more about our great guests and even donate to the podcast. If you like our podcast, you can help in other ways as well, like subscribe or follow us wherever you're listening right now. Tell a friend, a family member, or a coworker about the great content you find here. And if you wouldn't mind, please give us a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, or a positive review. Sounds like a small thing, but it really helps. You might like to know about our Facebook communities while we're at it. We have a free community, the Radiate Wellness Community, on Facebook for news and great free content. Our subscribers group is Radiate You, as in the letter U, but also, you. There you'll find curated replays of past classes, guest interviews, and more. And now, back to our podcast and back to our guest.
And so speaking of adornment, I want to switch over to accessories and jewelry. Yeah, where are you on that accessorizing?
Well, I have a piece right here.
Yes,
It's two
beautiful.
hearts, two little hearts connected with a chain. I love jewelry. I love crystals. I love statement pieces. Yeah, I love your stone. I love that piece. I think that jewelry is so important, and I think that there's sacred connections, and we can actually create light spells with clothes, and not like black magic or anything, but white magic. We can, when we wear our jewels, we are actually creating light spells, light technology, because they're a symbol, and it's like poetry. It's like some sort of thing that we're doing because it is a ritual. It's a sacred ritual when you put on that adornment in the decorative pieces. So I think it's, to tell you a story, I had a disconnection with jewelry for quite a long time. And it was almost like it was a dark spell against me not wearing jewelry. Yes, it's bizarre. Yeah, it's bizarre. It is a bizarre thing. But so I was really disconnected with jewelry, and it's almost like I was repelling the idea of wearing jewelry. And there were times in my life where I'd wear jewelry and it was fine. But then there was large gaps where I just wouldn't wear jewelry. And I think jewelry is so important. I think it's a piece that constantly you can reflect on. It's, when you wear these pieces, you kind of remind and remember things when you wear them. Mm-hmm. It's not just a piece of fabric. It's some form of material of connection that is very sacred. And it goes back in Egypt with their makeup and their jewels and everything, and it's very ancient jewelry. So yes, I love jewelry.
Well, and jewelry holds such vibration. That's why, going to there's a jewelry store not too far from my house where it's all estate type of jewelry, antiques, pre-owned type of jewelry. And it's so important to cleanse it before bringing it home because it just carries a vibration. Of course, this is a shungite, which is more for repelling energy, but gold, stones, silver will just retain emotion and the intent behind them. So it's important to cleanse them. So you are also a channel and a healer. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yes. And before I mention that, I'm loving this conversation. I think that you have added so much with your knowledge with fashion, and I love that you added the point of cleansing your jewelry. I think it's so important. Then sunlight, crystals, sea salt, anything to be able to get that residual energy out. Because I had worked at a thrift store, and it was madness because I absorb as an energy healer, I absorb energy like crazy. So it's almost like I'm a conductor. So with that being said, I sort of kind of go into the arts of planetary work. I visit the vortexes on the planet, Arizona, Mount Shasta, Monterey, different sacred sites around the world, typically in the Western area. I had just visited Joshua Tree. That's a major vortex. So these vortexes apparently are the ley lines. They're the major ley line points, and they're connected with the grid, the energy grid. And when I visit these vortexes, in some way or another, I am a channeler, and I'm channeling these healing vibrations, and I'm actually transporting them. So when I leave the vortex, I transport the energy that's coming through. To be honest with you, my spirit guides are a bit hush-hush with the type of planetary work. They are not giving me all of the information that I'm craving.
I know. Yeah, same.
You see, then you're going through a similar thing that I am. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like, it works out. You're okay. You'll be fine. Yeah. They're like, it's on a need to know basis. You don't need to know right now.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm so glad that you said that, because it's frustrating. I'm glad I'm not alone. And I had a feeling this was happening to other people. But it's so common you meet someone where they're going through that same thing, where you're doing this energy work and this light work, and you're not getting the full download of everything that you want to hear. You ask questions, and then I do prayers. Tell me in my dreams, tell me in my night dreams. But still, it's very secretive to some degree.
My hypnosis clients, the same thing. Under hypnosis, they want to connect with their higher selves and ask all these great questions, and their higher selves are like, it works out. It's fine. It's coming. Don't worry about it.
Yes, that's what it is. And I believe to some degree, I think there's two sides of it. I think that what happened to me was my third eye shut down at a very young age.
Yeah.
And that was happening from maybe some dark occult technology that wanted to take down the light warriors such as yourself and me. And so I think at one point they'd used dark technology to do something to my third eye. And at one point, I think too, I have these light ET guardians and these extraterrestrial light keepers that are kind of using me as sort of a puppet, and I'm doing this service work, and for me to be able to know everything that exists in the universe. I mean, think about how much brain capacity we're using. I just don't think we're completely tapped in.
Right. Yeah, and we're not using the full capacity of our soul either, our higher self either.
Exactly. Yes. So you're right on.
Oh,
You're
same,
right on.
right? Good. Well,
Yes.
I'm glad we're on the same page there.
Yes.
And I love just adding this aspect of fashion. And, we tend to look down on people who are really into fashion kind of collectively. Oh, that seems so frivolous. Oh, don't you know about mass production and, all of these things. And we tend to think of it as something frivolous. But I've always thought that when we feel confident, we radiate confidence. When we feel like we look like we want to look, we just radiate peace and joy, and people want to, you get what we're having. In other words, who look at you and just say, wow, I like how you look because you feel confident.
Exactly. And I believe everybody has a style process and style phases. And right now, I still am not where I want to be with my fashion. And I feel like it's a constant learning journey, and it's part of the soul journey to be able to step into our phases of life and our style genres that we want to connect with and connect to. So, right now I'm super into comfort, and I think that's going to be a phase that's not really going to go away. But I believe in high fashion that can be comfortable. I believe we can do it. I believe that it is being done. And I think it can be done at a price point that is available for everybody.
I agree. And I think COVID in a way has taught us reprioritizing comfort, because when everybody started working from home, we were working in sweats. We were dressing down, maybe wear a nice top or something for Zoom meetings. But other than that, flip-flops and sweats. So when we're kind of more or less putting a toe back into returning to our lives as they were, and then we're now ready to let go of the comfort that we've had for the past year and a half.
Yes,
Right?
and I think what we're doing is we're stepping into modern comfort. We
Modern
want the
comfort.
modern comfort. We want the minimalism and the athleisure, step it up into design, high fashion. And I think from following the trends, I think ultra modern comfort is where we want to be, the ultra modern comfort, so that we don't look like we're dressed, too comfortably or whatnot, like we're in PJs, but dressed in high fashion modern comfort. And that's where I talk about ergonomics, and I get into details with down to the zipper, a comfortable zipper, and down to materials that can energize us, and designs and silhouettes that can help the observer and not just ourselves. So yes, I do believe, we want to not be too comfortable like PJs, but we want to get into the modern comfort. And that is something that we all deserve. We deserve to be able to, because if we're comfortable in our body and we're comfortable, then we're comfortable in our soul. We need that. Our soul needs comfort.
I agree, because if we're uncomfortable in some type of clothing, we're not breathing correctly because it might be too tight, too restricting. Our digestion might not be where it needs to be because maybe, again, it's too tight, too restrictive. Our movement is not, is again restricted. So I'm thinking of the little strappy dresses and the tall shoes and everything. When we're not comfortable, we're not able to access all of our energy.
Yes. So instead of, say, a stiletto, we can wear, they're designing these new sneaker stilettos. So they're like a sneaker high heel. And instead of wearing, a a tight belted dress, we can wear sort of like a knitted stretch dress that can breathe and stretch and move with the body and the skin and everything. So I think that there's alternatives and there's substitutes. And like I said, it's out there, it's being done, but I think we can go far deeper and far more into a healthy fashion trend and movement and create more awareness. Like based on your conversation, you already get this. I mean, you're really all about this, really.
So, really pay
yeah.
attention. That's why I love this conversation, Alyssa.
Thank you. Yes. So with everything that you have said, and with what I have said, I think what it comes down to is there's a spiritual awakening happening, and whether it happens or not, it's going to happen. It's ascension time. It's end times. This new movement is going to happen with or without me. It's a transmission. It's a transition, and it's very exciting. I love to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's going to happen whether we go with it or not. Why not be comfortable? Why not be ethical? Why not be fabulous while we're at it?
Exactly. That's perfect.
It's more fun. So we have gone through a lot in terms of fashion, comfort, healing, the metaphysics of fashion, which who knew? You have so educated me and opened my eyes to this. I can't wait to get up to my closet and look through some things there. But do you know of anybody who's doing it right besides you? I know you create your own clothing as well and your own stuff. Are there any brands that are getting it right?
There's lots of brands that are plant-based. I'm not going to mention any specific names, but I will say Nordstrom. If you want to get into more of a contemporary look, Nordstrom has a little filter online where you can type in if you want cotton or linen materials, and they will show you dozens of garments that are 100% cotton, 100% linen. So I love that about Nordstrom. I think it's really a great feature. And for people that want to step away from polyester, we really need those tools. We really need that feature online. But I think, even Target's starting with a company, they have Universal Threads, and I know it's mass market, but they're doing things with sustainable cotton and dyeing, and they have 100% cotton garments. So if we want to, we don't have to support the unethics of company, but we can support what they're doing right. And I think that if you're supporting what they're doing right, the demand will happen. And I love all brands. I don't go against brands, and I'm not like mean or fussy. I think everybody is trying and everybody is doing their part. It's just a matter of time where we as a fashion consumer can make the demand.
That is fantastic. Yeah, it is up to us. I mean, all of these major brands, they just respond to what we want to buy and what we ask for, and we can make those changes. I'm thinking even of Trader Joe's, where I do a lot of grocery shopping. Their packaging has been overwhelmingly plastic and kind of more single use and just not real sustainable. And they're making changes because they've gotten so much feedback. So feedback does help. It really works. So when we can say, this is what we want to buy and this is what we expect to see, and then give props, like you said, give props where they're due. It's like, you guys are getting this right. Let's take it up a notch, right? So we can ask.
Yes, that's a perfect example. Absolutely perfect. Yeah, I love Trader Joe's too, and I'm glad that you mentioned something about the plastics.
Yeah, they're slowly making that switch over, but they heard. I remember saying something at my local store, and they said, "That's great that you're telling us, but here, why don't you go to the website and contact the national website?" And they said, because we're the local store, they said, "We're hearing from a lot of people about this. You're not the only one."
Wow, that's interesting.
So when we can talk to Target, when we can talk to Old Navy, The Gap, H&M, what have you, and say, what you're doing is great, but please, let's see if we can do better.
Yes.
Why not?
Absolutely.
Now,
I agree with you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So your book, Healthy Fashion, is due to come out. Well, we're recording this early November, but it's due to come out in about 4 weeks from now. And people can pre-order the book though at John Hunt Publishing. Although by the time it comes out, we may be out with this podcast episode. But where can they find out more information about you?
Well, you can pre-order it, by the way, on IndieBound, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and you can Google Healthy Fashion, The Deeper Truth, and there's dozens of books selling the book online and pre-ordering it, selling it. So there's that piece. And you can also find me on my website, www.hsnhealthyfsnfashioncampaign.com, and I have a tab with it says book, and it gives you a whole Q&A about the book if you want more information.
That is wonderful. We will put this link in the show notes, and we can all connect with you there and pre-order the book. I absolutely love that you mentioned the indie bookstores. That's a huge deal.
IndieBound.
Yep. IndieBound bookstores, right? So it's a good way to pre-order and keep the independent bookstores going. Alyssa, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been enlightening. I had no idea how cool this conversation was going to be.
Yeah, you're very knowledgeable. I've had a lot of fun. It's great to, talk to a fashion advocate expert.
But I'm an advocate. I like comfort and I like looking good.
Well, I believe you have some fashion expertise. I really do.
Awfully sweet of you. But this has been really, really cool. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Christy. It's been a delight.
Radiate Wellness is an international community of holistic and alternative healers dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.